Since I began putting videos out on the internet, I've gotten a number of questions about my accent. Yeah, what? Hey, how's it going? I just want to ask, what's up with your accent? See what I have to deal with? To me, these questions are strange. Like, I'm not Japanese. Sorry, I didn't mean to surprise anyone there. If you need a second, just pause the video and take a breath. So me having an accent when I speak Japanese is normal to me. But it's happened enough that I figured I need to sit down and make a video on it, so here's that video. When I get questions like this, I really think that they're asking three kind of questions to overthink things. Overthinking things is kind of my job. And these are: one, what level of pronunciation do you actually need to be like good at a language, specifically Japanese? Two, what is my job as a Japanese scholar, a so-called expert of Japanese? And then three, me specifically, what's up with my pronunciation specifically? So let's address them in that order. When people start learning a language, a lot of times they aim for fluency as the goal of that. And I think that's a really bad idea. If you're defining fluency by, and I think a lot of people are, the same as a native speaker. Some of you watching this video have or will achieve incredibly high levels of Japanese proficiency, potentially in all aspects of Japanese. But the fact of the matter is, native speakers should not be your goal or the target you aim for, because it's not achievable, really. No matter how good you get at Japanese, the average experience for anyone, even people who achieve a very strong level of language learning, is that something, your accent in a tiny way, your vocabulary knowledge, your grammar, your speed of reading, will not hit the same level as somebody that grew up speaking that language. And even if somehow you do, even if you are so good that native speakers of the language say, hey, wait a minute, you weren't raised here? You get that level of compliments, it'll still be a little bit harder. After an hour or 2 hours of talking in the language, your brain will still be just a little bit more tired than a native speaker's will. So for instance, when my students ask me, how long did it take you to get fluent in Japanese? I say, I'm not. That said, dictionaries, etc. sometimes describe fluency as just feeling comfortable with the language, and I am in that regard. And if that's what you mean by fluency, that's a good goal. But I would phrase it more as competent, communicative competence. Perhaps even more importantly, achieving a level that allows you to meet your goals for learning that language. One of the first people that ever followed me on TikTok, certainly one of the first people that had a large following to pay attention to what I was doing, is this guy Aruchan Sensei, who makes videos in Japanese and has achieved a sizable dedicated following doing so. And he made a video a while back, which I've gotten permission to share, wherein he responds to a comment saying, when is this person going to be fluent? And emphasizes that the goal for him is not fluency, it's not being perfect, it's communicating with people.
このコメント必要か？外国語を習う目的は他の人とコミュニケーションを取る。ペラペラじゃなくていい。もちろん外国語を喋ったらたくさん間違いする。誰でもそう。で、私も43歳。日本に20年住んでる。人とコミュニケーション取ればいいと思ってるだけ。
And I think that's a really good thing. He has achieved a level where he can make video content that Japanese people are interested in, which is impressive. Is his Japanese perfect? Is it non-accented? Will he be mistaken for a native speaker? No. But he is communicating with people in Japanese successfully, and they are enjoying it. That is a success, and that's what his goal is. That's really going to be key in your language study. There are going to be a bunch of elements to learning Japanese: listening, speaking, reading, writing, confidence, flow, communicative competence, cultural competence. And you'll find that some of these you're better at than others, and some you're worse at. You'll also find that some of them are more motivating for you, more linked to your goals, and others are not. If you want to become a voice actor in Japan, yeah, you better get really good pronunciation. But if you want to read Japanese manga, you might never speak Japanese in your life. And that's fine, because you're achieving your goals. You don't have to do it for anyone else. This is why things like the JLPT are actually really useful, because they stand as like barometers that aren't native speaker, which is impossible, that you can achieve. Setting an impossible goal is silly. If you want to become a scholar of Japanese, having like a perfectly cropped and designed ginger beard, look, sorry, unless you're already ginger, you're too late. Set a more reasonable and practical goal, like, being good at research. But this all brings to pronunciation, and I think that out of the various things that you need to learn Japanese, there is an overemphasis on pronunciation. And I hesitate to make this. I don't even want to make this video, really, because I think out of all the videos I make, this part right here is going to give me the most, negative feedback. I'm going to upset some people, but I think that pronunciation is vastly overemphasized. If I'm going to speak honestly, about 20 plus years now of using Japanese, and that 20 years has been filled with uncountable errors ranging from silly to incredibly embarrassing. In reflecting on the source of those errors, especially the errors I made in the first 3 or 4 years, when the errors were most common, I hope, the number that spawned from me not knowing enough vocabulary, or me not knowing or not being able to recall grammar forms, are massive, whereas the number that have been caused by my accent, I could count on one hand. The number counted by pitch accent, I can think of one. And honestly, it was me saying that I don't like oysters, but it turns out that I don't like persimmons either. So no matter how I say cocky, it worked out okay. This isn't to say that pronunciation is not important. It is. You need to achieve a level of pronunciation where you can be understood by other speakers of the language. I'm not saying native speakers, speakers of the language. So you can't just throw pronunciation in the bin. I'm not saying that, and I never would. Japanese has 5 vowels, you need to restrict yourself to them. It has long and short vowels, you need to pay attention to that. You can't be like, hey, watashi wa wisu desu, karaoke ga sky desu, yoroshaika. That's not gonna work. But it's okay to have a little bit of an accent. It's fine. It's not a bad thing. Indeed, Japanese people have accents. Everyone has an accent in every language. And there is a range of sounds that people accept. This is obvious for a language like English. No one expects 2 English speakers to sound the same, and people are quite comfortable with a range of accented forms of English. But for some reason, people treat Japanese differently, as if it just has one accent and that's the only one that you can ever be successful with. But that's not true. Usually what I see in a lot of discussions of Japanese online, Japanese accent, etc., is that accent has become number 1. It's the most important thing. And to me, it's not. It's important, but not as important as others. And I'd say pitch accent, especially, is really, really down low at the bottom. If you have spare time to review your Japanese and improve your Japanese, working on your pitch accent is, and here's where I'm going to make people upset, the lowest. All I'm saying is like a pitch accent kind of fetishism that is developed based on these kind of videos telling you that if you don't have proper pitch accent, you're just not good enough. And I think part of the reason that accent is attended to and emphasized so highly is that, one, it's immediate, you can tell it right away, but also it's part of the TikTok, YouTube algorithm. Accent, sound, shows up really good in videos. We've all seen the, white guy orders food at Asian restaurant in perfect language. Wow! Meanwhile, of course, no one makes videos about like Asian people that have been learning our languages for thousands of years quite successfully. But you would never see a video on the other side. Like, no one wants to watch a video of somebody showing off how good they are at like reading kanji. Oh. This part's really interesting. It feeds into this, right? It's also, and again, just to be blunt, to be honest here, the easiest thing to fake. And I know there's an irony here, given that I'm somebody who speaks Japanese with an accent, even at my best. But if you're good at making sounds with your mouth, if you can do accents, if you can do imitations, you can make the Japanese sounds without knowing any Japanese. You could prepare before a video, sound great, and then forget it, and not even know what you're saying. You can't do that with the other skills, but it's good on a video. It shows up well on a video. And if you know nothing about Japanese teaching, if you know very little about Japanese grammar, if you have no background in Japanese, well, you can sure impress people with the sounds of your mouth. I'm being honest here. I'm not thinking of a specific account. I'm not thinking of a specific person. I'm just thinking of a trend that I've seen with just videos that get recommended to me that I have no interest in for 10 plus years now. A lot of it's accent focused because that's the easiest thing to promote and do on a video-based communication method, social media platform. The interest in pitch accent, I think, is especially troubling because I see it presented as like how to speak real Japanese, or the Japanese that textbooks don't tell you. Textbooks don't talk about pitch accent because the people who design these textbooks have been in classrooms and understand that out of all the things you have to get a student doing in one semester, it's at the very, very bottom. I've taught Intro Japanese for over a decade now at a variety of universities, and we have to deal with things like students not pronouncing their vowels long enough, students just giving up in the middle of a loan word. Like, I teach in Australia, the number of times I've heard, oh, Australia is so high. Mixing up basic particles. These things are way more important than pitch accents, so they get focused on. You won't find a Chinese textbook that doesn't talk about tones because tones are vital. Pitch accent? It's nice. If you can do it, well done. If you care about it and you want to do it, I encourage that. But the idea that if you don't master pitch accent, you will fail as a Japanese communicator is not true. Pitch accent is like the frosting on the cake. It's nice when the cake has nice frosting, but you'd much rather have a cake that's good with mediocre frosting than frosting that's good with mediocre cake. It kind of fills into this idea of a singular Japanese because pitch accent is not standard across the nation of Japan. Pitch accent varies wildly across the country. I've been told I sound like I have Osaka pitch accent, which is, I don't know, I'm fine with that. And there's even the NHK pitch accent. I have a dictionary for it over there. Ooh, look, dictionary. And while this is an accent that Japanese people are quite familiar with because they hear it basically every day, it's kind of fake. Like, I've had Japanese people describe it to me as sort of an artificial accent. It might be an idealized version of the Japanese accent, but it really only exists on the news, in the presentation. People don't talk like that in day-to-day speech. So while, again, I'm not saying, like, don't learn pitch accent, I am saying it is vastly overemphasized. And the idea that you can tell how good someone is at any language by the sounds that come out of their mouth is a misnomer. There are a variety of skills you will need to become good at any language, and balancing all of them is generally important, focusing on the ones that motivate you and that you think are most connected to your career, or whatever reason you're learning the language for. Focusing on only one of these skills, or treating only one of these skills as the marker of talent, and by treating the same as a native as the expectation for anything, reading, writing, speaking, thinking, whatever, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Whereas focusing on achieving your personal goals for the language, developing your skills in all of them to the best you can, and achieving a level where you can communicate comfortably in a way that feels natural, where you feel like you're a user of the language rather than just a learner, is a goal that I think is much more achievable and one that I encourage people to focus on. Indeed, while I really don't watch Japanese-related content on social media, I have, of course, seen some videos. And I have to say, I always have admiration for people like, this guy who goes out and makes content. I don't really love like screen interviews, but I think he's always kind of respectful, which I appreciate. And he speaks English. He does it all in English, right? But he makes some mistakes. And he doesn't speak just the way I do. Is he bad at English? No, he's incredibly talented. He's an incredibly good speaker. And I don't even like terms like non-native necessarily, because he's using English in his day-to-day life, in his career. He is a user of English. And I view his variety just as legitimate as I hope that Australians view my variety of English, which they don't because, theirs is better. But I get it. No one is expecting these people to speak perfect Japanese, right? Because they're not quote-unquote experts, and I'm a quote-unquote expert. So what about me? Does this affect my job? Well, I think this is a misunderstanding of kind of like what my job is and how I got it. My job is complex, like all academics. We do a lot of things, but as for what I do relating specifically to Japanese is teach Japanese and research Japanese. For the research part, I need to have a level of Japanese good enough to speak with Japanese people and interview them, which I do. I need to be able to read Japanese at a level that means I can access Japanese academic research, which I can. Books in Japanese that I read, ooh, wow, ooh. And that's about it. Again, being an expert doesn't mean that I can do what a native speaker can do, because if that was the qualification, any native speaker could walk up, knock on the door, and be like, hey, I'm a bit better than you at being a native speaker, give me your job, and that would be depressing because I have a mortgage to pay. I wasn't hired by the university because I walked up to them and be like, me pronounce Japanese good. You hire me do that. And they go, oh, you speak Japanese good? Oh, please come job. Yes. That's not how it worked. What about the classroom though? That is an interesting point. I do raise that. Like, am I betraying my students or something like that? I would say no. And there's a few reasons. One, again, once you've been in an introductory classroom, you realize where most students are. Well, I can't provide them with a perfect accent to imitate. I don't want them to just imitate. And I can focus on the things that they actually are struggling with at that level, which they will need to master before they can master things like pitch, accent, tone, etc. Which are, again, vowel length, making sure that when they talk about coffee, they don't just go coffee or karaoke. It's a thing, right? They need that training. I also have something that most native speakers of Japanese, just like most native speakers of English, don't have, and that is expertise in Japanese teaching. I've done research, I've read plentiful research on the subject, I've written 3 textbooks. I can explain things. I've made grammar videos on YouTube and TikTok. I can explain how the Japanese language works. Indeed, for me personally, it's weird to even see websites advertising like, we have native speakers on staff to teach you a language, because especially at the beginner level, what's important isn't if they're a native speaker, it's if they know how to teach the language. That's the skill you're looking for. And fortunately, and this is something that as the designer of our introductory Japanese classes, the university I'm at, I've put a lot of effort into and made really important, we try to balance it so that actually, because our students take 2 classes a week, we try whenever possible to make sure one is taught by a non-native speaker and one is taught by a native speaker, giving them a range of different pronunciations to listen to. And on the website that we have for our class, where students have audio files they can listen to, we have native speakers and non-native speakers, women and men, young and old, a variety of voices to improve their listening capabilities. Because in reality, if they want to become Japanese users, they will not be speaking to one single variety of person that speaks always in the exact same way. The more sounds that they can comprehend, including, of course, native pronunciation, the better. And that's kind of the philosophy we bring in there. If I was the only point of contact, if I had my students in like a cage and they could only learn Japanese from me, yeah, that would be kind of unethical. That's not the situation we're in. And fortunately, in 2025, students have plentiful access to really excellent pronunciation guides, including, while I was critical of some YouTube stuff earlier, there are lots of native speakers of Japanese online with backgrounds in education who care about this kind of stuff that are producing free, great, high-quality content to help students in these ways. If you can find a teacher that can do it all, amazing, well done. Congrats to you and that teacher. But it's always been the truth that balancing resources, balancing sources of information is useful. And nowadays you can do it even better. And we, of course, on our school websites, provide links to websites and creators that we endorse and find really useful. And that's how we kind of approach it. But finally, what about me? Why is my accent the way it is? Why is my Japanese accent the way it is in these videos? Which some people apparently think is very marked. Well, the first possibility is just that I suck. But with that out of the way, one definite aspect is that when I make these videos, I'm speaking in a style which is not my sort of natural speech. I did debate in high school, and then when I was in Japan and teaching, elementary school students, junior high school students, I realized that the way I presented things, the way I spoke, was really key on making sure people paid attention to me. When I went to grad school, master's, PhD, started going to and doing academic presentations, I noticed that people often kind of zoned out and started looking at their phones, etc. And so I worked really hard to make a speech style that grabbed people's attention, made them want to listen to what I was saying and want to look at me, want to look at my presentation. And that kind of style is what I use in these videos. And I have not mastered the ability to bring Japanese into that style without it being affected by that style. So when I use Japanese in my videos, it is being modulated not even by my natural English pronunciation, but like my speech style, speaker me, lecture style, and that affects that. My more natural Japanese, what I speak in day to day, is a bit different, and I'll show you right now. Just give me a second to kind of switch modes. これが私の日本語です。私が普通に日本人と話しているときに、このような音が私の口から出るんです。もちろん、母語話者と勘違いされることは全くないんですけど、私の今の発音は完璧ではないけど、やっぱり私の英語での解説の中の日本語とちょっと違うんでしょうね。There are potentially some other factors. Maybe my tongue just is bad. I don't know. When I learned Spanish in high school, I could never trill my R's. And I listen to a lot of death metal, so my ears aren't very good. On top of that, unfortunately, I haven't lived in Japan for over a decade. And while I don't have a specific way of measuring this, I can say that while I've been able to definitely maintain my Japanese listening, my Japanese reading certainly, reading's probably gone up, I imagine that that's had some effect on my pronunciation. Also, given the age range of the people that watch my videos on YouTube, TikTok, etc., I think that there's something that needs to be said about the difference in the context. I think some people don't understand how different language learning is in 2025 compared to how it was even just 20, 30 years ago. When I was growing up, when I started learning Japanese, there was very little ability to get authentic Japanese materials. It was very hard. The CDs that were in textbooks had native speakers on them. It was, for some people, actually myself included, one of the first chances to hear native speech. If you got a Japanese movie, it was often dubbed, until the invention of DVDs especially. There's just no option to get the subtitled only version. And the sounds you hear growing up affect the sounds that you can make when you get older. Research on second language acquisition is in a constant battle over how the age you start learning a language affects your eventual accomplishments in it. And there's no settled answer. But generally speaking, even though there is some controversy, research points to the idea that the later you start, the higher chance you will have of not achieving a perfect accent. And the dearth of the environment, the question of what environment you learn in, can affect it as well. I started at 18, and that was basically my first exposure to Japanese. Nowadays, as a teacher of Japanese, I get students that come to my class that have been exposed to Japanese since they were 5, and that's normal, that's not rare. That doesn't mean they have perfect pronunciation, but some of them start with really solid pronunciation. It's impressive. I've talked about this with Japanese scholars as well, and they note how young Japanese people who have English levels way below them are achieving English pronunciation beyond what they have now just in the first few days of class because they listen to so much English. They hear it so much and they've been hearing it for so long. And, we see this with the increase of the use of this to write a V sound in Japanese, which used to be, considered hard to make, hence everything becoming B. It's good to see, and it's really cool to see people being used to so many sounds, comfortable with so many sounds, and not viewing them as weird or foreign, but something that they can use and they've grown up with. That's awesome. And I'm glad that young learners have that. And I hope that means that the next generation of scholars of Japanese, the next generation of learners of Japanese, who I hope that in some way I can assist with in the materials I make, the videos I make, are better than me. That's the goal. But I'm sure some people will just think this is, as the young people say, cope. And that's fine. I expect that I will get constant comments about my pronunciation, just as I get constant comments about my hairline, because I'm putting myself on the internet, and therefore people will say things that are mean. But I appreciate everyone that has said things that are nice. Double shout out to all the Japanese people that have watched my content and engaged with it. I didn't expect that to happen, but it's really meant a lot. I think your comments are very funny and interesting, and I'm glad you like what I'm doing. I'm trying to be respectful to the Japanese language and show passion for it, and I hope that goes through. And just to everyone who watches this video who's made it to the end, what I hope I've gotten through with this video, and what I really want to be kind of the thesis statement of it, is that it's okay not to be perfect. Whether you're a speaker of something learning Japanese or you're a Japanese speaker who's learning English, it's okay not to sound like a native speaker. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not know things. Work on improving your abilities. Work on improving your skills in language to match what you need it to do for you. And make sure that you don't let anyone out there limit your passion for the language because they make fun of you for not being good enough in some way. As you get good at a language, you will encounter other people who are good at a language. And eventually you will encounter people who are better than you will ever be. But there's also a lot of people that are worse than you'll ever be. And you shouldn't feel bad that people are better than you, and you shouldn't be mean to people that are worse than you in a certain aspect. Help those that need help, and take inspiration from those who inspire you. Because we're all in this together. We're communicating. All languages change, And non-native speakers can be an influence on how languages change. You don't need to be born using a language to be a legitimate speaker of it. So work on focusing on being a better version of you and aiming for your goals. As for me, will I ever improve my accent? Well, unless I move to Japan, probably not. I have a busy job, I have a family, I have limited time. And I would like to use my limited time on improving things that matter to me immediately, improving my skills as a teacher, improving my skills as a researcher, and making Japanese learning content videos, etc. I find all of that better than working alone in my room on my pronunciation. Because if I did that, I wouldn't be able to do things like this. And when it comes to improving my Japanese, I'll focus on things that are actually causing communication to break down. So good luck out there. Keep your passion for language learning. Don't worry about anyone else's goals. And for all of you who enjoy my videos, for all of you who have subscribed and commented and everything else, don't worry. When I weigh the choice between focusing on just improving my Japanese accent for my own benefit only and making fun videos and stuff like that, I've already decided my answer a long time ago. And that is my pronunciation. You're never going to see me again. Bye.